Hello everyone, I'm CJ Werleman. Don't forget to click the subscribe button below, and we kindly ask you please help keep our show going and growing by supporting my journalism at patreon.com/CJ You'll be helping us expose more injustices in the Muslim world. Now let's get into it. India's Hindu supremacist government has stepped up its effort to demolish and destroy every Islamic mosque, shrine and monument in the country. What it aims to do is to completely wipe out any evidence of Muslim life and Islamic culture in India. You see, the Modi regime has made no secret of its desire to transform the country into a Hindu-only nation, one in which Muslims are either expelled, annihilated or made third-class citizens. Call it ethnic cleansing, call it genocide, call it what it is. But making this monstrous situation measurably worse are American donors who are secretly funding the campaign to demolish mosques in India. Yes, you heard that right. Individual American donors are deliberately, but sometimes unwittingly, donating cash to Hindu nationalist organizations in the United States that are using this money to demolish mosques and persecute Muslims in India. I will delve into these irrefutable details in a moment, but first, here's some important background. According to a new report, India's ruling party, which came to power in 2014, has overseen the demolition of nearly 500 mosques and shrines in the Indian state of Gujarat, 650 mosques of various sizes in Amritsar, and just as many in the state of Uttar Pradesh. The most recent being the 16th century mosque, which was demolished on January 15. The mosque was bulldozed just days before a court was to hear an appeal from the local Muslim community. But India's ruling party has long demonstrated its total disregard for the law, having corrupted and controlled every layer within the criminal justice system. 2 months ago, it even defied a court order when it demolished its 300-year-old mosque. And it's not like members of the Modi regime are keeping any of this a secret. It's just that the American public isn't listening. Prominent Hindu nationalist leaders are openly calling for the destruction of 30,000 mosques by falsely and absurdly claiming they were built atop ancient Hindu temples.
भारत के अंदर 30,000 मंदिर हैं, जिनको तोड़ करके उसके ऊपर क्या बना दी? मस्जिद है। कितनी संख्या है? 30,000। बोलो वापस मंदिर बनाना है कि नहीं बनाना है? राम जी का तो बना लिया, लेकिन अभी 30,000 बाकी है, उनको मंदिर बनाना है, वापस अपना स्थान हमको।
It's no coincidence that the campaign to demolish Islamic buildings is occurring at this time, given it's been exactly 30 years since the ancient Babri Mosque was destroyed by Hindu terrorists who now lead and control the Indian government, which today has a clear strategy for targeting and demolishing every mosque in the country. And the strategy goes like this. 1. Claim a mosque was constructed atop a ruined Hindu temple. 2. Order an archaeological survey. 3. Petition for the mosque demolition under the pretext of righting a fabricated historical wrong. And then finally, wage a public relations campaign to build public support for the demolition. And they're carrying out this strategy right across the country, with nearly 2,000 mosques targeted for immediate demolition. But this ethnic cleansing project is a costly exercise. It requires large sums of money to pay bribes to public officials, judges, journalists, and surveyors, and even greater sums of money to fund PR campaigns meant to convince and placate the general public. Which is why Hindu nationalist groups in the United States are raising huge sums of cash from American donors to fund this Muslim genocide. One such group is the Global Hindu Heritage Foundation. It's a Hindu supremacist organization based in Texas, but registered as a US non-profit, allowing it to raise money under the phony auspice of charitable work. But this is no charity. This is an organization that follows the Hinduism ideology, an ideology of hate inspired by Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party, an ideology that wants to ethnically cleanse Muslims using the same methods the Nazis used to exterminate the Jews. I exposed this organization's funding strategy in a recent article for the New Arab magazine, revealing how it recently organized a fundraiser in Frisco, Texas to raise money for forced religious conversions in India and the demolition of mosques and churches in the southern India city of Tirupati. And as I have warned many times before, these hate groups have flown completely under the radar of law enforcement authorities in the United States, even though they spell out their genocidal ambitions in black and white print, and even in brochures. I mean, imagine what would happen to the leaders of an Islamic group that was raising money in the United States to persecute Christians in the Middle East. They'd be sent to Guantanamo Bay quicker than you can blink. Clearly this needs to change. Clearly we must raise awareness about the goals and activities of the Hindufa lobby, which is exactly what my friend Peter Friedrich did when he helped lead a protest against the Global Hindu Heritage Foundation in Texas last month.
The RSS thinks that Indian Muslims and Christians are foreign to India, internal threats to the country, and traitors to the nation simply because they follow a religion of their choice. And operating from a position of national power, pulling the strings in Delhi, the RSS is seeking to eradicate, eliminate, and exterminate Muslims and Christians in India.
As Peter rightfully points out, the Global Hindu Heritage Foundation eulogizes the Hindutva terrorist organization Rashtriya Swayampsevak Sangh, or RSS, which sits at the top of a family tree of like-minded hate groups in India. But it's also important to understand that RSS essentially operates under the name Hindu Swayampsevak Sangh, or HSS, in the United States, where it sits atop a constellation of US-based Hindutva organizations, including the CIA-designated terrorist group VHP and the charity organization Sewa International, which raised money from British donors to fund the Muslim genocide in the Indian state of Gujarat 20 years ago. Altogether, the primary activities of these Hindu nationalist organizations include raise money for anti-Muslim hate preachers in India, raise money for Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his party, the BJP, mislead and recruit the mainstream Hindu American community, and spread anti-Muslim hate throughout the United States and infiltrate the Democratic and Republican political parties, and finally, to raise money from American donors to fund the persecution of Muslims and Christians in India and Kashmir. Alarmingly, these organizations are extraordinarily effective at raising cash from the typically naive American public. In fact, a recent report found that 24 Hindu extremist groups raised more than $100 million from Americans alone during the past 2 decades. Much of this money is funneled to RSS leaders and activists who are employed to threaten and harass Muslim communities throughout India, like this local community RSS leader here, who uses conspiracy theories to demonize the local Muslim population.
मुसलमानों से आज पूरी दुनिया का हर इंसान परेशान है। केवल हिंदू समाज ही परेशान नहीं है, हिंदू जाति ही परेशान नहीं है। धरती की हर कौम का हर व्यक्ति, हर इंसान, हर बच्चा, बूढ़ा और माताएं बहनें सब परेशान हैं, दुखी हैं, क्योंकि पूरी दुनिया के अंदर आज जो आतंक इस्लाम ने फैला रखा है वो धरती की किसी और विचारधारा नहीं फैला।
Alarmingly, the Hindufa lobby is becoming ever more powerful and ever more entrenched within mainstream political parties throughout the United States, Europe, Canada, and Australia. It uses this growing clout to push schoolbooks into parroting Hindu nationalist tropes about Indian history, to protect caste privileges and attack academics and journalists who criticize the Modi government or the Hindufa ideology. It also forms alliances with far-right and white supremacist groups to amplify anti-Muslim hate. But the good news is we can counter all of this by raising awareness, sharing this episode and supporting activist groups like the Indian American Muslim Council and websites like Stop Hindufa Hate. Together we can build political pressure in our home countries against the anti-democratic and fascist Hindufa lobby.